in the summer here in Texas, you're not going to go outside wearing a three-piece suit and an overcoat.
Speak for yourself.
would
I
die.
look fine during summer here in Texas. What are you talking
Right,
about?
in your shorts and t-shirt, right?
In my Disparate Worlds t-shirt. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Welcome to Disparate Worlds, where an irresistible force meets an immovable object. I'm Mox, and help me, Obi-Wan Sechari, you're my only hope.
Yes, I do feel hopeful.
We are comparing and contrasting the worlds of Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, and Ashes of Creation.
Yes, indeed, I do feel hopeful, my friends. As if this is an episode in which we have a new hope.
Yes, we do.
Yes. Can you tell, from certain clues that we may be Star Wars fans? I've been there, done that. Oh, goodness. Welcome to everybody. Good to have you with us. Here we go with another episode. Visionary Realms recently did this is one for you guys. October 29th, they did a live stream that was an environment update featuring Jimmy Lane, who's also tagged Torque, a.k.a. Senior Environmental Artist. So they did that. There was a lot to that. It was really cool. As we know, Visionary Realms is working on Pantheon right now in a pre-PvP state. There's no player versus player combat currently within reason. So that means that what they're doing is that it is primarily player versus environment, right? PVE combat. So there's a lot to that. That means that because there's no currently planned player versus player, or maybe there is, but not implemented. I want to be careful with how I'm phrasing that. Their focus is PvE, and they want to make sure that they do PvE well. There's various different. If you begin to think it through and break it down, obviously, if you're thinking, hey, player versus environment, people, you're going to be fighting mobs. And so we automatically begin to think, NPC and mob AI, right? What is artificial intelligence and how do these things react? And there's been a lot of thinking. I think there's probably a whole episode that we can explore AI with regard to mobs in Pantheon.
Right.
However, for this episode, we wanted to, and really because of their live stream, that kind of prompted us to think more about it. Environments are a thing, Mox. The more you begin to think of it, the more you actually start to, it's kind of staggering just how much environments participate in player versus environment. We all know that they're planning for cold weather, right? There's a cold weather aspect. I'll ask you to explain more about that here in a minute. Traversability, right? We've already seen videos of climbing in this. So there's some verticality with regard to climbing in this, but there's more to traversability than that. Moving through water, moving through tough terrain that's hard to get to, and then using environment also as an aesthetic. Thinking through, hey, when do we want you to reach the top of the hill and see something amazing? There's been a lot of thought that has come into that. So we wanted to spend a minute just kind of digging deeper into environments in Pantheon. So stay with us and we'll get started. Okay, so getting into it a little bit. Environments, are they friend or foe? Are they an ally to you or are they an enemy? There's a lot to this in Pantheon. So Mox, let me turn around. Let me ask you some things. I mentioned a moment ago about weather, and that weather is something that affects you. Can you explain that a little bit more for me?
Well, yes, and the answer to your question as to is it a friend or is it a foe, the answer is yes. So, and I'll explain why. Because yes, you do need to worry about the environment in Pantheon. If you are going into an underwater area, there's going to be hurdles to overcome there. And not just a breathing bar that appears that you have to surface before that breathing bar runs out. There's going to be pressure. Like you're deep underwater. You have to deal with pressure. You're gonna have to deal with how am I gonna breathe? So yes, it's gonna be against you, but then it will also be for you. So let's say you are let's pick a cold area, for example. You're in a cold area and it's snowing and you have an ice spell. That ice spell may very well get bolstered because you're casting it in an icy area.
So you leverage that environment, right? There's a blizzard or something.
Yeah.
You pull the cold out of the air and throw that ice ball, and it's stronger because of it. I think that's cool.
Right.
That's fun to think about.
So that's kind of interesting. So they're going to have poisonous areas. They're going to have areas that you deal with fire. You're going to have areas dealing with heat. You're going to have areas that deal with cold. You're going to have areas that, as I mentioned, underwater. So there's various of areas that are all climactic, and they will all impact your character in different ways. So you actually have to, prepare to go into those areas. So you have to dress appropriately. In the summer here in Texas, you're not going to go outside wearing a three-piece suit and an overcoat.
Speak for yourself.
You
I
would
look
die.
fine during summer here in Texas. What are you talking
right,
about?
in your shorts and t-shirt, right?
In my Disparate Worlds t-shirt. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Yes. So, and on the other side of the coin, if you're in Alaska in December, you're not going to go outside in your t-shirt and shorts. You have to prepare for that. So they're trying to bring that, level of realism into the game. You're going into a cold area, you need to prepare for that. Whether it be prepare for it by spells, bringing along somebody who can cast a spell that will protect you, or your gear, or whatever. Or your race. Some races are going to have bonuses to this stuff. So you need to prepare. So that's what we're talking about here. When is the climate an enemy or a foe or a friend? Yes, it's both, because I can get that there's a lightning storm out. I can, and I have a lightning spell. It may very well get enhanced by that. And that's all stuff that we're going to have to, it's already been kind of said, but we're going to have to discover really what the impacts of those are and how often can you take advantage of that versus the penalty of being in that area. So there has to be a balance. Again, it ties back to both Pantheon and Ashes of Creation really want the risk to be worth it. You're going out into these virtual worlds, and they want you to be rewarded for the risk you're taking to do it. Another way the environment can change and be different for us is going to be in a day versus night cycle. They've mentioned to us that in the nighttime, you're going to have NPCs that normally might be patrolling during the day. At night, they're going to be going around lighting lanterns, and lighting the way. So
and walking in
obviously
twos, right? They mentioned I think
right,
guards,
exactly,
for instance, would walk in twos, and that makes sense, right?
Pairs,
It's night, so there's some real world behavior that is actually affecting the AI in that instance.
So it makes me wonder, will night vision be a thing? Like, we play Dungeons and Dragons. So, and one of the things that your character struggles with in Dungeons and Dragons is, you can't see in the dark. You're human.
So blind. Oh my goodness.
So, will that be a thing in Pantheon? It would be interesting to see. In EverQuest, it was. Your characters had to carry around a lantern if they didn't have dark vision. Or they could eventually get a spell cast on, and they could see better at night and things of that nature. But initially, starting off, you were running around, and there were day-night cycles, and you had to run around carrying a lantern in your offhand. You had your sword in one hand and your lantern in the other hand, and that was the deal. So
I can imagine a lantern and no shield. My goodness, night would not be your friend. I mean, but that's the idea here, right? Is that night is that the environment, and that's time as well, is challenging. And so hey, I don't get a shield, I have to carry a lamp. Can somebody please help me see in the dark or something, so that makes sure then you're thinking, okay, let me take dark vision and let me take somebody who has the ability to help me see in the dark into account when I build my group to go out there into the night. I think
But
that's amazing.
it's possible that maybe because you take that race that has dark vision, that you now are losing the ability to acclimate well to heat.
Right.
So you're trading things off. So it's a lot. It's going to be a series of trade-offs,
Yes.
which is kind of cool.
Well, because it makes it important that you know everything. You know what I'm saying? It's not enough. I mean,
When you make that character, yeah.
There's going to be a distinctive learning curve for the newbie. You're going to get into this, and there's going to be too much stuff you don't know, and you're going to have to depend on the leadership and of somebody who's been there, done that, and kind of knows all the classes and knows all the races and who's good at everything, so that when they build a group, you are there to provide some value.
And when the time comes and we have access to these games, Disparate Worlds plans to be your hub for that information.
You better believe it.
You come to us for your guides, come to us for your information on builds. That's our goal here, is to learn as much as we can so that we can give back to you in the form of guides and information.
I plan just basically to experiment on Mox. I'm just gonna document very well all his mistakes, and then
how many times I die.
Put them on the website. You'll see like complete write-ups. It's gonna be good.
How not to play an enchanter. That will be my guide. So that's day versus night. Going back really quick to EverQuest, there's a really cool zone in EverQuest called Comqueror Forest, where there's a day-night cycle where the mobs actually totally change. During the day, it was like a level 1 to 15 zone, but at night, it became like a level 30 zone. So you were fearful to go through that as a lobby at night. You didn't do it. You would sit at the zone line and wait, or you'd ask like, can I get escorted?
Yeah, or you learn how to skirt. You run along the outside and hope that you don't get destroyed on your way out there. So.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're doing a corpse run. So, yes. One of the other things they're adding in here, they talked to having seasons. So it'll be interesting to see, seasonal effects on spells. Maybe it's possible that in the winter you have, wintry-based spells, but then those spells maybe as time goes on and summer months comes around, and then all of a sudden, you have more fire-based spells. It'd be interesting to see if.
Yeah, that hadn't even occurred to me. Yeah.
How are they going to implement that? Like, how is it going to be affecting them? So yeah, very, very neat that they thought to add in another aspect. When you're taking away something like PvP, as Sechari mentioned, you kind of need to have some other engagement and difficulty factor thrown in the mix. And this is one, and I like the direction they're taking with it.
Yes. Now, that's not to say, I think I want to be careful at this point to say, hey, there's going to be no PvP, no player versus player combat.
At least...
There will be, or there might be. There's a good chance that there is. We just don't know. And based on current understanding, probably.
Yeah, the plan currently is that they eventually will probably release a server or two that are PvP servers, where you go out into the world and you are flagged for PvP and other people can kill you. But they want to make sure they get the game right before they add that in. And the one good thing is that being a PvE-centric game, you'll never have a situation like we encountered in Star Wars: The Old Republic, where the PvE game got changed because the PvP people were not happy with the balance. They were complaining, and we, this spell should be nerfed. Well, they didn't have the ability to separate the PvE and PvP. So because they changed it for PvP, it got changed. Like PvE got changed, and it changed the whole dynamic of the game because of one subset of players.
And then they're having to get in and tweak the health on bosses, right? Because now everybody's souped up, or someone so is overpowered, and then the whole balance of the game gets affected. I think in a very ripple effect kind of way. That's
when you're trying to please everybody. Right. So by being a PvE focused game, I think they can keep that that potential hazard to a minimum. Whereas Ashes is going to tune around PvP, group PvP specifically. So that will be their focus, and then they'll have to fine tune other things around that, and that's fine. Just pick one and focus on it. And I think when a game doesn't have an identity, that's the risk you run. But I think both of these games have strong identities, so I don't think we'll run into that issue quite as much.
Yes, and you have to stick to that identity. I think that is key. Decide what kind of game you want to create.
Right.
Build a vision and then do the vision right from launch, and you never depart from it, because if you do, you're going to have a game that the player base will know this game has an identity crisis. They never know what they're trying to do, and every new expansion or DLC that comes out something different, right? A
Should
vast
be building on
overbalancing
that vision, not departing from it.
Yes, fully agree.
Yeah.
So another thing I think that's worth mentioning on this list is topography. I mentioned, traversability, which apparently I have a problem spelling. Poor Mox was having to correct every traversability, and I think I was putting an I or something instead of an A. So,
yes.
But you need to be able to move from A to B. You have to be able to get across the road, across the stream, across the mountain. And one of the things I love that they mentioned during this is, I think it may have been a Q&A question during the Torque's kind of interview or the live stream that they were doing, was, have you planned like big reveals? And he said, yes, absolutely. There are points in the map where you're going to be kind of, the valley or whatever that you're in gets thinner and thinner. And then you come to this vista and it just opens up and you see below you this entire, whatever it is, like a city or I think a vista. I'm not really sure what the word was, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Thinking proactively about how to design your environments so that there are moments of wow.
Yeah.
And not World of Warcraft wow. I'm talking about wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a bad joke. But anyway, it needs to be inspiring. It needs to be where you
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah, fully agree. So traversability, big thing. Those choke points and vistas, I think that's an important thing. We had wanted to talk about climbing as well. Can you unpack that one a little bit for us, Mox? There's a lot to it.
They have climbing, which is great. You and I are both fans of Assassin's Creed. We've played the latest game at least, and that is a very vertical game. And apparently, Pantheon's going to be a vertical game as well, which is really cool. Assassin's Creed handles climbing very well from a character motion standpoint. It is very smooth. You walk up the item, you hit your button, you push forward, you climb. And you can climb just about anything in that game, which is amazing. And it looks good.
Yeah, the mocap, right? The motion capture is good of the muscles that strain as you climb up something, right? Or the hand holds that you're supposed to go. If you're, and we were talking before the episode, chances are no one's going to be fit enough to have and then to be able to jump. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
You have to, like that's a racial bonus for you right there. But with some reasonable expectation, it needs to be something where you do feel some of that as the character traverses a tough environment. There's some strain on this character. So.
And that it looks nice. Like, it just looks smooth. The videos we've seen so far, I think, have left me, at least, less than enthused about this mechanic. It's interesting they have a climbing mechanic, but it honestly looks like these guys are crawling up the wall. Like...
Yeah.
It just did not look good. And then they got to the top of the wall, and their characters, like, here's the wall, and their character just kept on going up until they got to a certain point, and then they kind of went over. So they were, like, climbing up nothing.
Yes.
Like, and it just...
Now,
so I'm hoping that Project Fairtale has addressed some of that, and that they've, updated the motion and things of that nature. I'm not expecting an Assassin's Creed type of climb because they're two different types of games.
And
but I want something a little better.
Yeah, and it's not what they're trying to build, right? It's a very minor mechanic in an otherwise much huger game. And so I think that is something that bears some thinking. Another thing, and I think we can't lose sight of this, Mox, as excited as we are for this is pre-alpha, right?
Yeah,
I mean, goodness, and motion capture, I'm sure it is in scope as well as everything else to be redesigned and reiterated on, and so things are growing and things are changing, and it could change very well. It could be amazing. It could be that great. Once
do we know that they're doing motion capture, or are they animating everything?
My expectation is that they're animating. I use motion capture probably too liberally, really just to describe how characters move, the animations, however they got there, of how this
right.
Now
Gotcha.
Just as this is a complete sidebar, I think this does deserve a point somewhere in one of these episodes. We'll unpack it a little bit more. It's one of the question marks I have about Pantheon is the motion, right? How is the animations, follow through. If you hit something with an axe, there shouldn't be all that straight follow through. There should kind of be some resistance. I don't know if, we can talk about it more, but I think motion capture in general is something is a question mark for me.
Yeah. And I think as we get into our various stages of development, you get into the Alpha 2 and I get into Alpha of Pantheon, we'll know some of that stuff. Because hopefully by that time it will be closer to a final product versus what we're seeing in, because a lot of these videos that we do watch to get this information, some of them are old.
Yes.
And some of them, just flat out, they're a year or two old.
That's true. And you look at it and you're like,
take that.
This is terrible, and it's because it's like a year and a half old. Like, look at it now, So yeah, I agreed. We need to.
So.
Yeah, fully.
So yeah, so there's a key part of the climbing is stamina. Like you can't just climb like in Assassin's Creed. You can just climb and climb and climb and climb and climb till the cows come home. With Pantheon, you have a stamina that has a limit. You can climb X distance. So if you're trying to get up that 50-foot cliff, you better have enough stamina to get there. How can you train that? Can you get a buff to help you with it? Are there going to be resting points? If you stop climbing, do you fall?
How do you calculate it? You know what I'm saying? How do you size up that cliff and go, that's 50 feet. I can make about 25 of that. There's a ledge. I'm going to go for that ledge. Right?
Exactly. So all these things are going to be, we've seen a little bit of climbing, so they haven't really gone in depth into the mechanics of it. But very cool that they're having it. I like the fact that they're expanding to a vertical, content, which is also going to include climbing down into caves. It's not just always going to be going up. There might be a hole in the ground that you need to climb down. And maybe you need to have the stamina to reach the bottom. And if you don't, maybe you fall to your death. I don't know. Do you?
That would certainly make that environment formidable, my friend. It's like, remember how we were talking about environment as an enemy? Yeah, that's a good example right there. So
exactly. So we mentioned there's going to be swimming, so that's going to be something. Is there going to be water breathing spells going to be available? Can somebody brew a potion? If you can't, can you buy a potion to have that handy because you don't have somebody that is can cast that spell, to get to that underwater cave or whatever it is you want to get to. So all these are questions, but again, part of how the environment plays a role as an adversary.
Interesting that you mentioned pressure. That pressure is a mechanic in water, because usually in every single game I have played, there's the breathing mechanic, right? You can't breathe underwater, and there's a bar, and the bar is ticking down as soon as your head goes under the water. Pressure. I've been swimming. I know that if you go a little bit down, you begin to get squashed, right?
Right.
And now we had, I don't know how much we want to dig into this, but there are some racial passives that are going to be available to certain species or certain races, I guess. That I'm looking here at the Dark Mirror, for instance, in our notes, who has some pressure acclimation. Now, I don't know what that means. Does it mean you handle it better, or that it doesn't affect you?
Right.
I don't know.
You may have a breathing bar. So this is the way, kind of like my guess. You have a breathing bar. That breathing bar goes down X% at 10 feet, and it goes down a slightly higher percent at 20 feet, 30 feet, and it starts going down faster and faster, deeper you go, because you're under more pressure. The Dark Mirrors maybe just goes down a little slower.
Yes.
So
what is the implementation? I think that's my question. Is what is it going to look like, right? And who knows? I mean, it's fun to read these things and go, ooh, my goodness, what is innate bonus to anaerobic acclimation? Some big words here.
Right.
All right, just means that anaerobic means you can't breathe, so obviously underwater. Right? I mean, you can break it down and simplify it, I think. But yeah, that's an interesting racial bonus. Some other ones like dwarf, frigid and toxic, cold resistance. It's a dwarf. They are in the mountains, right? They're deep below the earth or something. That's what dwarves do. I think that it would make sense that they are protected by their beards.
Right.
kept
yeah,
warm.
they're also protected by poison, which, lore-wise does go well with dwarves. They are the only one to get, them and the Dark Mirror get 2, and then depending on the path you choose with your Archai, you'll get one bonus. So very interesting. I'm sure we will talk, when we talk about our races, we'll talk more about these, and we are planning a races video for each game coming up in the future.
I think for now, let's go ahead and link them in our description down below. I think it's there is a couple videos that we had stumbled across. where Joppa had gone into, hey, video part 1, part 2, just kind of going over what all of this is, and touching first on what the race was and the characteristics, right, the personality of the race, and then showing us, based on that, here is basically what those racial passives look like as a result of that racial character. So very, very good videos. Highly recommended. Do check those out. Links down below.
Yeah, there's no deep information about this stuff yet, and we may never actually get numbers from the developers on this stuff. It might be something that we will discover as players going forward, which is true of a lot of these systems.
Yeah, that's true. Day and night rotation, another thing that we had touched on as well. That NPC behavior is different. That model, that they do different things based on the time of the day. And then again, as you'd mentioned, you may step into a zone at night, and it's not the zone that you were in that morning, right? It's a lot more perilous. And so I like the idea that day and night, and not just weather, right, but day and night and seasons, if you zoom out a little bit more, affect the environment in ways that are very subtle. Suddenly guards are walking 2 by 2. Now, if a guard is walking 2 by 2, now there's a different strategy to take that on. I'm trying to go raid that town or whatever it is, right? Get into that area. Beforehand, I was able to just kind of slip a guard behind a building and take him out, right? Well, now he's got a buddy. So, do I CC that buddy? You know, what options do we? I guess we as a group have to take on a different challenge, a different configuration, because the AI is acting differently based on time of the day. To me, I just think that's a really cool idea. So
yeah, absolutely. So, on our website, I've been going through the tenets of Pantheon, and as you may know, there's 20 of them, and I've just been working my way through them and kind of unpacking them a little bit. By no means is it a dissertation. It's just more this is my thoughts on this stuff.
He lies, my friends. It's volumes and volumes of information, pouring through all of these things, unpacking them, exploring every facet of all of these tenets.
It's like three paragraphs per article. I'm an okay writer. I'm blessed because I have a couple of very good editor friends, so they make me sound intelligent. But please stop over there and take a read and give a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on those. So while Pantheon doesn't have PvP, we do in our comments. We call it our Comquest. Every episode, we ask a question of you, the fans, to answer, and the person that gets it right gets pinned, and they are our Comqueror of the episode. So in our last episode, we asked Sechari in Ashes of Creation, what is the race he is going to dabble in first?
Yes.
So let us know what glorious race you're going to be. Oh, wait, it's probably a gourd, right?
Yes, I would love to be a gourd. No, so the answer to last episode's Comquest question, and I'm so glad I didn't get that wrong, is the Empyrean Elf. That's the one I'm looking forward to. It translates, if you're a D&D knowledgeable, it translates, I think, to a high elf kind of an idea, is the race. I love that. They tend to be the I think Empyrean is a good name for it, right? An imperial kind of. They're very well established. They have the rules. This is something about high elf culture, architecture that just has always fascinated me. So, Empyrean Elf is the answer to Comquest of the last episode.
So it's time to turn the tables on me, and the question this week is, what's the first race that I am going to play in Pantheon? Where will I set my stall up, racially speaking, in the game? The closest, it'd be the correct answer, first correct answer, will get pinned and be the Comqueror. So please comment below and let us know what you think I am going to play first. On social media, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Disparate Worlds, on Twitter at Disparate Worlds, and our website is disparateworlds.org. In addition, on our website and in the description of this video is a link to our Discord. Please join us there. We welcome you there. Would love to chat with you about both games. We're both very passionate about Ashes and Pantheon, so hop on our Discord and have a chat with us.
Yes, I'd love to get that community going. We've had some friends join us, a handful of folks, but having you a part of it, I think, is going to be a cool thing, because that way we don't have to just comment on the episodes. We can actually converse with you about your ideas, your expectations. Absolutely join us. Can't wait to see you there. That said, that will be it for us for this episode, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. We do appreciate you being here. Please drop a comment. Love to hear from you. Do the like, do the subscribe. All of that stuff is important. Also important is the notification bell. That way you will not miss upcoming episodes. All of that said, take care of yourselves, our friends. And always remember to be immovable in your principles and irresistible in your passion.